Hello, Swati. My name is Gaurav Rastogi. I'm a telechaplain here at the Hindu Spiritual Care Institute. I live in California and I'm happy to be here. So tell me more about you. What brings you here?
Hi, Gaurav. I'm a student, a college student here in California as well, and I saw some QR code in my with one of my friends about being able to talk to somebody, a chaplain, a Hindu chaplain. Some things were happening on campus, and I wanted to just see if I could talk to somebody.
Yeah, happy to hear it. So what year are you in college?
I'm a junior. I'm a
You're a
junior.
junior? Nice,
Yeah.
nice. And then what do you plan to do after you graduate?
I'm not sure yet. I'm looking at some internships. It's not very easy right now. I'm in humanities. It's very tight to find something that you can make some money out of. But yeah, I'm still looking for some internships and fellowships since it is my junior year. And hopefully this summer I can land something.
Yeah, it is a tough market for sure. How are you taking the religious studies class? What part of what course was this?
It's just a elective. I needed an elective to fill it. I'm not a major in this religious studies or anything. I'm more into English and Span languages. So,
Languages?
but yeah, yeah,
It's wonderful.
I did. It was available, and I decided to just take it. I thought it would be an easy class since since it's about Hinduism, but it's turning out to be different than I expected.
Sure. Tell me about your family. Did you grow up here? Are you practicing Hindu or are you just interested in Hinduism? What's your background?
Yeah, I grew up here, and my parents are pretty religious. They do the puja and stuff, but I just go to the temple maybe for Shivratri or whenever they drag me to the temple, but I enjoy it, but I'm still figuring out the practice part.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Hinduism is hard to explain to practitioners, what to mention everybody else. So I understand. So what brings you here? What's on your mind?
Basically, like I said, it's just supposed to be an elective course. I didn't think much about this class, and the professor is very well known. She just published a book recently too, and she just seems very well read. And a lot of my friends were taking the class, so oh, I just decided to take it. But this last week, there was a topic that came up about casteism and patriarchy and how that's embedded. These are the words that were used, but it's embedded in the religion. And some of my friends they could give examples of how they've seen caste when they would visit their grandparents back home or something, or even in the families. And I guess I could see some of that patriarchy and stuff in my family too. But it made me a little uncomfortable because I never really thought about my religion that deeply. I would just say, yeah, I'm religious, I'm Hindu, but she's making me think about what that means. And I don't want to be a part of something that's so repressive. I don't think that's fair. But then I don't know what the actual religion says because everybody can share a story, but I don't know, maybe you know more, you can tell me about what it says, but I just feel very confused right now.
Sure, I understand that. And I appreciate that you took the effort to reach out and speak with someone about it. What makes you uncomfortable? What did you observe or hear in the class?
It, it, it made me uncomfortable, I guess guilty, that I tell people I'm a Hindu, but being a Hindu seems like a bad thing. That being a Hindu means that I discriminate against people, and I'm not like that. I try to be inclusive and a good person, but it seems that the definition of being a Hindu includes a lot of things that I don't identify with.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think that it makes me feel guilty for being a Hindu. I think that's weird, but yeah.
Yeah. Repression is definitely bad. And I understand that people may make connections between that and the structure of any religion, including Hinduism. So I understand your concern. How may I help you?
A part of me, because I grew up with my parents telling me that this is right and we celebrate Ramji's festivals and Bhagwan Krishna's festivals, I just saw it as something fun and social and the food, all the fun things about Hinduism. But is it really have all these dark parts to it that I just am ignorant of? That's my question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Would you like me to give you my perspective?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Not many miles from where I live, there's a prison. And there was once a website that looked at the population census and colored the dots in in any zip code according to what ethnicity people come in. And just a few miles down from where I live, there was a particular rectangular shape that seemed to have dots that were differently colored from the dots surrounding that area. And I began to wonder what's going on here. It turns out it's a penitentiary and a jail, two separate things. And they're housed by people that are ethnic minorities in California. And and the surrounding population is not reflected in that mix. And the question is, are people of a certain ethnicity or ethnic skin color incarcerated more than the others? And is that a function of the society that we live in? And the answer is yeah, a certain proportion are incarcerated more, and it is a function of the society we live in. But can it be put down to the constitution or the religion, or the majority religion of the country? And the answer is no, you would not do that. It's just the way the society is. And society is over, this is a 400-year-old society. And then over time, it has these inefficiencies where some people are oppressed more than the others are. People are always on each other's case, but sometimes repression becomes endemic and system wide, and those societies need reform. And this is a continuous process of reformation that societies go through long term. The US is new to this type of reformation. Europe has seen that sort of reformation. If you know what's the blue bloods, these were royals that intermarried to the point of having genetic disorders. They were very careful about who they married and how, because that's how their lineage traveled. They had the 1% that had all the money and power, and the other 99% were serfs. So these societies, every society goes through these periods of upheaval where they need to be reinvented. It's not fair to combine them with what religion might dictate. The Hindu religion is a very long religion. We've been around for 5, 7, 10,000, depending on who you ask, that many years. So we've been through our share of upheaval and churn, which is normal to every society. Now, what you might hear of as caste repression, in quotes, is you have to think about what that means. The word caste, of course, is not a word that comes from the Hindu religion. It's a word that comes from Portuguese. It means purity. And remember those blue-blooded royals? Purity was a very important part of their religion. If you see the Greeks that were ruling Egypt way back like 2,500 years ago, Greeks that were ruling Egypt, brother married sister because they wanted to keep it all in the family. So these guys were very caste oriented. And that's why they had to invent a concept called caste, which means purity. When the colonizers went to India, they were looking for ways to divide and conquer. Again, a very old Roman strategy. And a good way to divide a society is according to the natural community groupings that might exist. Now, India and the Hindu religion in general, but India in particular, non-Hindu communities have the same feature where a lot of communities are endogamous, which is they marry within the community because they like to keep their culture, they want to keep their food habits, religious habits, and they like to marry within the community. So over thousands of years, there have been endogamous communities. And when the colonizers came in and would prefer to divide the society, they imposed this idea of a caste, a firm, unchanging, unmoving sense of caste that's fixed and frozen. And then they had to go through the 1800s, late 1800s, a census where they asked people to pick one of four categories they were in. And they told us, because they spoke English and we did not, they told us this is from our religion. It is not at all a feature of our religion. One, it's not baked into the religion at all. It is, some of these divisions are a function of societies. Like I told you, every society tends to have these, especially long-running societies. And the concepts that India, the Hindu religion, the traditional practices, again, not religion, the traditional practices we had were, there was a gotra, your patrilineal lineage, where you did not marry someone from your gotra because unlike the Greeks that ruled Egypt, we did not want to marry our sisters. So you had to marry outside your gotra. So remembering your patrilineal, like your Y chromosome, was important. So gotra is one. Your kula, your family, is important. Your varna, the choice of profession that you had, is important. And that existed in the community as well. And jati, which is the sort of broad community grouping that you're in. These are all concepts that existed for various historic reasons in the Hindu tradition. But when the British colonizers came in with an intention of dividing the society, they said, no, all these things are too complex for us because we're colonizers. We don't understand your nuance. Tell us in four simple categories. And then they taught us that actually one category is oppressing the other category systematically. And they invented histories from whole cloth. And to answer your question more completely, caste is not a feature of the Hindu tradition. Hindu tradition, religion, definitely not, even tradition, not. The Hindu tradition does have other ways of remembering your community, which might be your choice of profession. So let me ask you the following things about last names. Do you know a certain Mr. Carpenter, a Mr. Smith, a Mr. Black, a Mr. Taylor, right?
Mhm.
A Mr. Thatcher or a Mrs. Thatcher? These, what are these? A tailor is a tailor. A smith is a smith who works with iron. A blacksmith is a blacksmith. A carpenter is naturally a carpenter, and so on and so forth. These are your choice of profession, a varna, that because Mr. George H.W. Bush's son also became a politician, George W. Bush, and also became the president, you chose a profession, you taught your tricks to your children, and eventually your profession sometimes becomes a family profession. The goldsmiths have goldsmiths, right? The point is, it's ridiculous to confuse all of that and say, no, it's all the same. You guys are in four categories and there is systematic oppression. That is not at all a feature of the Hindu religion. And certainly the Hindu religion is far more egalitarian and far more mutually reliant. If you think about an ecosystem view, everyone is mutually reliant on each other. So in the Indian epics, the Hindu epics, for example, the king's job is not to lord over their subjects. That is a very British and European construct. The king's job is to serve the praja. Praja is anyone who is born, right? Not people that are my subjects, but anyone who's born, which could be animals, birds, trees, anything that's born. I'm accountable for their upkeep and welfare. So maintaining a just and vibrant society was my job, and I had to die for it if I needed to. And that was the king's job. The people that were doing priestly duties are like people that might be doing PhDs now, people that are invested in knowledge and acquiring wisdom and transmitting it at no cost. You might hear the phrase Brahminical patriarchy, and I laugh at that because it's ridiculous. Why? Because the Hindu tradition is rife with stories. Just go into Purana after Purana. The cliche, the trope in those stories, always this poor Brahmin whose kids are dying and they now need to sell off their their family cow or whatever. The poor Brahmin is a completely common trope. And to think that this poor Brahmin is exerting some sort of Brahminical patriarchy is laughable if you actually read the texts. So what's happening now is a lot of conflation. There is a transference of white guilt to a successful model minority, which is Indians. And you say, all right, you guys are affluent, you must be like the new whites. And you must also have become affluent by subjugating other people or repressing other people. That's not true at all. The Indian minorities anywhere that are doing well are successful because we're invested in education, we're invested in commerce, we're invested in the welfare of the communities we belong to, and not repression. There is not much history of slave trade in the Hindu tradition. We do not believe in owning other people, right? And so in that sense, you have to understand that there's a lot of projection that's going on, conflation, but you don't have to take it personally, and you certainly do not deserve any guilt on account of any assumed repression. I'll give you another example to finish this off. Untouchability. You read about this in your sixth grade book, that Hindus practice untouchability. A few years ago, we all practiced untouchability. You did too. Why? Because we had COVID. You couldn't be in front of anybody else. My grandmom, my mother's mother, practiced an extreme form of untouchability, which is none of us could touch her. If she had taken a ritual bath and she was going to cook food and present it to divinity, her chosen form of divinity, as prepared food, that only then she can have it. If she's bathed and we touch her, she has to go back and bathe again. It doesn't matter how cold it is, she's going to do it. And so there was extreme understanding of laws of contact, even within families, because again, this is a tropical region filled with all manner of diseases. And to survive, you had to learn to keep it within yourself, right? And touching taboos are very common, but they're not exploitative or exclusionary. They're part of the culture of the people because it's what allowed them to survive against all these
That
plagues.
story reminds me, one of the stories that a student told when the professor brought this up was about her grandma. And she said that her grandma didn't let some people into the house and they had to use the back door of the house or something. And she said that was the example of casteism that she saw when she went to India. So it's it's it makes sense if it was for health reasons back then, but people are still following it, and it's not in the scriptures like you said. Like, what could explain that?
Yeah, what could explain that people are not allowed into the house? Yeah, again, like I said, outside people from outside your pattern of food consumption are not allowed in. I'll give you an example again. Some families do not have onion. So Jains, for example, don't have onion or garlic. And when someone walks in with onion or garlic, you can smell them from a distance. And your home is a sacred space. You might have sacred spaces up front that you do not want to expose to those odors. And so you don't let people that haven't bathed, haven't had a certain kind of food, or if you're meat eaters or whatever. So there's a lot of cultural taboos that exist that are unique to the Indian thing. And that's just a feature. It's not that Is everyone allowed in your house all the way into your room? Out here, a lot of kids don't let their parents into their rooms. Is that exclusionary? Is that caste privilege that you're exerting? No. So it's just what you arrive at as a negotiated agreement.
Yeah.
And by no means is this a factor of the Hindu religion itself, by any means.
Seems
So
like
I
there's a
hope
lot
you've,
to sort out.
yeah, I hope this has been helpful. Look, there's a lot of misinformation. You need to ask questions. So what you did, I applaud that, because you actually didn't take it for what it sounded like. You asked and you sought clarifications. I appreciate what you did. Thank you for doing it.
It was nice that I saw that QR code. I didn't know who to talk to because I didn't want them to think that I supported bad things. But this has given me a lot to think about. I feel like I have to look back at the notes and figure out what the professor was saying and what you said about our scriptures and the word caste. It's a lot of information to process and sort through, but I'm glad I have more information. I feel like I see two sides now, and it's up to me to figure out what makes sense for me. So I
Yeah.
thank you for the information.
Thank you, Swati, and good luck with your studies. And if you ever need to talk to us, you can invoke the genie by once again scanning the QR code.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.